Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a real-life Hollywood-style geopolitical thriller. I mean, the stakes here are so high, they could literally reshape the entire global order. Picture this. It's August 25th. Out of nowhere, a massive U.S. military transport plane descends and lands right in the heart of enemy territory. It's not carrying troops, and it's definitely not delivering supplies. It's carrying a secret. And we're going to break down exactly what happened, why it happened, and what this means for all of us right now. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. The inciting incident of this whole geopolitical mystery is the sudden, highly covert arrival of CIA Director John Ratcliffe in Russia. This is huge. It marks the very first time since 2021 that America's top spy has stepped foot on Russian soil. Now, neither the CIA nor the Kremlin is saying a single word publicly about why he was actually there. The absolute secrecy surrounding this trip just instantly set off alarm bells across the entire intelligence community, leaving everyone asking one massive question. What on earth would prompt the CIA director to walk right into Moscow? To understand the gravity of this, we have to retrace this clandestine journey as it unfolded on Tuesday, August 25th. A massive Boeing C-17A Globemaster, that's a heavy military transport aircraft belonging to the U.S. Air Force, takes off from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. It doesn't fly a standard commercial route, obviously. Instead, it makes a brief strategic stopover in Riga, Latvia, before pointing straight into Russian airspace and touching down at Moscow's Vnukovo International Airport. And get this, shortly after the wheels hit the tarmac, eagle-eyed observers spotted U.S. diplomatic motorcades swiftly navigating the streets of Moscow.
And here is where the timeline gets incredibly tight. Director Ratcliffe spent exactly 4 hours on the ground. Just 4 hours to conduct what might honestly be the most critical diplomatic mission of the entire year. During that tiny window, he met with senior Russian officials. Now, the Kremlin actually came out and explicitly confirmed that President Vladimir Putin was not present at these meetings, which leaves analysts to conclude that Ratcliffe most likely sat down directly with the heads of Russia's own spy agencies, so either the FSB or the SVR.
Which brings us to Theory 1, the Ukraine warning.
So, since the officials involved aren't talking, experts have had to piece this puzzle together themselves. With peace talks between Russia and Ukraine completely stalled, this first theory suggests Ratcliffe was there to deliver a very specific message. According to reports from the Wall Street Journal, U.S. intelligence actually intercepted some highly concerning plans from the Russian military. The intel suggests Russia has been preparing for a massive new phase of military mobilization. And even more dangerously, they're allegedly planning provocative operations explicitly designed to test the limits and patience of NATO. So this completely set the stage for a high-stakes, face-to-face confrontation.
So the crucial point is perfectly captured by Beth Sanner, the former deputy director of national intelligence. Her analysis is that Ratcliffe absolutely did not fly all the way to Moscow for polite peace negotiations. Not at all. Instead, he was there to look Russian intelligence dead in the eye and basically say, "We know what you were thinking of doing. Please don't do it because the consequences will be severe."
If you want proof of just how sensitive this 4-hour window really was, just look at what was happening on the battlefield at that exact moment. The United States explicitly requested that Ukraine halt its drone and missile strikes on Moscow and St. Petersburg for August 24th and 25th. And Ukraine agreed. They paused their strikes. The U.S. desperately needed the airspace and the political climate in Moscow to be as absolutely stable as possible while their top spy was physically on the ground.
Now, this extreme tension has naturally led to some pretty chilling speculation. Political analyst Gordon G. Chang took to X to ask a question that really rattled a lot of people. Was Putin planning to use nuclear weapons on Ukraine, and was Ratcliffe sent to stop it? Chang even posted the phrase, "War is coming." Now, as an explainer, it's really vital for us to state neutrally and clearly here. There is absolutely zero public evidence right now of an impending Russian nuclear strike, okay? This is pure speculation. But it perfectly illustrates the sky-high anxiety surrounding this entire covert meeting.
All right, moving on to Theory 2, the Iran sanctions. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we pivot away from Ukraine and focus entirely on the Middle East. Just before Ratcliffe's trip, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced Operation Economic Outcast. The sheer, overwhelming scale of this thing is staggering. The goal is to completely isolate Iran economically. It aggressively targets Iranian oil, their military and cyber sectors, and their extremely lucrative gold trade. In one massive sweep, severe sanctions were slapped onto 60 different entities, individuals, and ships. But you might be wondering, how does this connect back to Moscow? Well, Russia and China are actually key targets of these sanctions because Russia happens to be Iran's biggest strategic partner right now. Former British military planner Air Marshal Andrew Turner shared his theory with The Telegraph. He pointed out that Ratcliffe's mission was likely to warn Russia that they need to cut their military support and technological ties with Iran immediately.
And Ratcliffe wasn't just there to ask nicely, right? He brought some massive leverage to the table. The threat is incredibly clear. If Russia continues its military and tech relationship with Iran, the United States is going to unleash crippling secondary sanctions directly onto the Russian banking sector. We're talking about a massive economic ultimatum delivered right to their front door.
So that leads us to a fascinating diplomacy shift. Why send a spy? Before we hit our third theory, we really have to ask, if the U.S. just wanted to issue a warning, why send the CIA director instead of, a traditional State Department diplomat? Well, the answer lies in a fascinating geopolitical concept called intelligence-to-intelligence diplomacy. Basically, it involves covert, back-channel communications directly between rival spy agencies. And it offers something a public summit literally never could: maximum plausible deniability. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact difference between the two roles. Look, if you send a traditional diplomat, it's a highly public event. The media is scrutinizing every single handshake. If the talks fail, it results in massive political damage for the administration. But if you send the CIA chief, the meeting is completely covert. If things go sideways, the administration has maximum plausible deniability. They can easily just brush it off and say, "We never met about that," or "We were just discussing standard security protocols." It is by far the safest political route for such an incredibly risky meeting.
And that brings us to Theory 3, the Grand Bargain. This final theory suggests that this whole trip wasn't just a one-way warning, but actually a complex negotiation to reshape the entire global chessboard. Experts believe Ratcliffe might have been floating a hypothetical give-and-take scenario that kind of looks like this. The U.S. asks Russia to make significant compromises regarding the war in Ukraine, or to completely sever its strategic ties with Iran. In exchange, the United States offers to relax specific, heavily damaging economic sanctions that are currently crippling the Russian economy. It's a classic geopolitical trade-off, just being negotiated entirely in the shadows.
Let's move forward and see how this builds into our litmus test: future indicators. Because this meeting was totally secret, it's not like we're going to get a press release about how it went. Instead, we have to track actionable takeaways over the coming weeks to know if this 4-hour mission was actually a success or a failure. For example, if we suddenly see the U.S. adding Russian companies to the Iran sanction list, well, that means Russia rejected the terms and the secret deal failed. On the flip side, if Ukraine suddenly resumes heavy drone and missile attacks on Russian cities, it tells us that the de-escalation talks failed entirely. These are the real-time, on-the-ground indicators we all need to be watching. So we've unpacked the flight, the theories, and the massive stakes of this historic 4-hour intelligence meeting. Two massive nuclear powers operating in total secrecy at a time of absolutely unprecedented global tension. Which leaves us with the ultimate question as we watch these events unfold. Will Putin heed the secret warning delivered by America's top spy, or is he preparing to escalate this conflict to a point of no return? Keep your eyes on the news, folks, because the fallout from these 4 hours in Moscow is only just beginning. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.